You know how they say the devil is in the details? Well, mine came in the form of a shirt, size large, not mine, smelling like sandalwood arrogance and crumpled up like someone peeled it off in a hurry. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to a week ago. My wife, Claire, had just returned from a soul-searching group retreat in the Rockies. Yoga at sunrise, hikes at noon, journaling by candlelight. The kind of thing that makes you roll your eyes until they spray. She came back with a tan, a distant look, and a sudden hatred for processed sugar. The woman kissed me on the cheek like I was a distant cousin who loaned her $5 once. "I'm tired," she said, breezing past me like I was the valet, dragging her wheeled luggage behind her. "No, I missed you. No, how was your week?" Just straight to the bedroom to take a long, silent shower that somehow lasted 47 minutes. Something was off. And it wasn't just the silence. Claire was quieter than usual, sure. But there was a heaviness in the air, like a thunderstorm that hadn't decided whether to rain or explode. She didn't talk about the trip. She didn't talk much at all. That night, she lay in bed like a log on trial, present, but giving nothing away. Her eyes stared at the ceiling like it owed her answers. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't push. Not yet. The next morning, she left for work early. Too early. Claimed she had a 7:30 meeting. On a Monday. The woman's job didn't even open until 8. So I did what any rational, well-adjusted man would do after a weekend of lukewarm hugs and invisible tension. I checked the luggage. Not because I didn't trust her. Because deep down, I didn't trust that I should be trusting her. The suitcase was still parked by the bedroom wall. Half-zipped. I figured I'd just peek inside, find a few rolled yoga pants, maybe some organic tea bags. Instead, I found 3 things that punched me in the face harder than any fist ever could. A men's shirt, navy blue, Ralph Lauren, with a lipstick smudge on the collar. A bottle of cologne, not perfume, cologne. Expensive and masculine. A postcard, tucked neatly in the side pocket. No envelope. Just a short, elegant scrawl on the back. "Your eyes are the best view of this trip." That was it. No name. No return address. Just emotional graffiti, branded on paper. I stared at the card for a long time. And then I did something very simple. I packed all of Claire's things into the same suitcase. Shirt, card, perfume, every last sock. I zipped it up, wheeled it to the front door, and left it in the hallway. Then I changed the locks. Because sometimes revenge doesn't start with fire. Sometimes it starts with silence. And a deadbolt. She came back that evening around 6. I know because the motion sensor on the porch blinked twice, and I saw her silhouette pause through the frosted glass of the door, like a ghost trying to remember if it still lived there. Then came the rattle of her keys, and the satisfying click of nothing. She tried again. A little twist. A little jiggle. Then the sound of her fist hitting the door in one sharp knock, like I was late for dinner and she'd just found out I'd sold the house. I opened the door slowly. Calm. Composed. Like a man who had all the time in the world. She was standing there with her work bag slung over one shoulder, makeup slightly smudged, jaw already tightening in that defensive way liars get when they think they're about to be accused but aren't sure for what yet. "You changed the locks," she said flatly. "I did," I said. She looked down. Saw the suitcase. Her suitcase. Sitting right there like a stray dog that had been put out with a note tied to its collar. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice dipping low. "You're making a scene." "Oh, I haven't even started the scene," I said, stepping aside so she could get a clear view of her stuff. "This is just the prologue." She crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic." "Claire," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "Whose shirt was it?" Her face didn't flinch. She just blinked. Twice. "What shirt?" "Don't do that," I said. "The shirt in your bag." "Navy. Ralph Lauren. Lipstick on the collar that doesn't match anything you own." Still, nothing. Her poker face was championship level, I'll give her that. But the smallest vein in her temple started to pulse like it wanted to scream the truth. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let me help you remember." I walked to the small side table and picked up the postcard. Held it up like a courtroom exhibit. She saw it, and this was the first crack in the wall. Not a crumble, just a tremor. Her lips parted. Slightly. "You went through my things?" I almost laughed. "Claire, you brought another man's scent into our house. Into our bed. And your problem is invasion of privacy?" She shook her head, but there was no conviction. Only performance. Like she'd rehearsed the wrong monologue for the wrong play. "You're paranoid," she said. "Better than being blind," I replied. Silence. Just the hum of the porch light and the sound of her betrayal hanging in the air like bad perfume. Finally, I stepped back. Your things are here. Your key isn't. I'd recommend you stay somewhere else tonight. Her voice cracked, just a little. You don't mean this. I closed the door halfway, looked at her with the kind of clarity only a broken heart can sharpen. No, I said, but I finally understand it. And then I shut the door. Click. Deadbolt. Behind me, the house was quiet. But inside me, the war had just begun. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. You can't rest when your gut is busy testifying against your heart in a courtroom that never closes. I kept thinking, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe that shirt belonged to some poor yoga instructor who lent it to Claire when it got cold on the mountain. But then again, postcards don't write themselves. By morning, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just tired. Tired of the guesswork. Tired of doubting myself every time she gaslit me with a smile and a vague explanation. So I brewed a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened her suitcase for a second time. This time, I wasn't just looking. I was documenting. Shirt, cologne, postcard, 2 receipts from a boutique hotel in Vail, double occupancy, a wine-stained napkin with a doodle of a pair of eyes and the words, "Best View," scribbled underneath. It wasn't just betrayal. It was artistry. I took photos of everything. Every detail. Every whisper of infidelity wrapped in cotton blends and expensive musk. Then I picked up her phone. She'd left it behind, probably in her rush to regain control the night before. I stared at the lock screen. She still hadn't changed the passcode. Foolish. Or arrogant. For digits later, I was in. I went straight to the messages. Not the usual apps. Not iMessage. Not email. No, cheaters evolve. Claire used an app disguised as a weather widget. Classic. Inside, I found exactly what I expected. And worse. His name was signed with just an initial, A. But his words were all M. Last night was perfect. You looked like a storm coming through the pines. Send me that pic. The one in my shirt. Did he ask about the perfume? And then, next trip, Cabo. No excuses. I sat there, rereading the messages like some masochist with a grudge against his own peace. And when I was done, I emailed every single screenshot to myself. Then I stood up, walked outside. The morning sun was too bright for the mood. Claire's suitcase was still there in the hallway, right where I left it. But this time, I opened the front door, picked up the bag, carried it to the curb, set it down like a final offering to whatever gods watch over fools like me. Then I walked back inside, locked the door. And this time, I made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. My cousin Jack, ex-army, quiet, dangerous when needed. Because if Claire wanted to play games, she just enrolled in the wrong league. Jack didn't ask questions. Not at first. He just listened, quiet as a loaded gun, while I laid out the whole mess: Claire's trip, the shirt, the perfume, the postcard, the messages. The final nail: Cabo plans with a man who signs texts like a Bond villain. You want me to find this guy? Jack asked, voice even, but I could already hear the gears turning. I took a breath. No, I said. I want to know everything. Jack was the kind of guy you kept in your life like a fire extinguisher, behind glass, never touched unless things were already burning. He'd been military intelligence before he went private, the kind of work no one admitted existed. He didn't flinch at heartbreak. He flinched at sloppiness. By noon, I had an email. Attached, 6 PDFs. Background info on a man named Andrew Kessler, mid-30s, divorced, entrepreneur, self-described adventurer, founder of a luxury retreat service for high-value professionals. Instagram full of shirtless hikes and vague quotes like, "Real growth is silent." I could practically hear him whispering that into Claire's ear while passing the wine. He wasn't just the guy she cheated with. He was the guy she thought I should have been. Andrew lived in a condo downtown, drove a matte black Range Rover, went rock climbing twice a week. And apparently, when he wasn't pitching mindfulness and smoothies to stressed-out executives, he was texting married women things like, "What if we just disappeared?" Jack had even traced payment records. Claire had wired him money, $3,200 for the cabin. She labeled it, "Cabin, my foot." That was payment for services rendered, in more ways than one. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, phone in hand, heart in a chokehold. This wasn't just cheating. This was replacement. She didn't want to fix us. She wanted a clean swap, same life, just with a better brand name. Well, I've never been flashy, but I've always been thorough. The next few days, I stayed quiet, methodical, Claire didn't come back. She messaged me twice, once to say, "Can we talk?" and again to say, "I deserve a conversation." I didn't reply. Let her stew in her own absence. Instead, I made moves. Subtle ones. First, I visited our bank, removed her name from the joint account. She still had her separate funds, but the house? It was mine. Had been before the marriage, protected by a prenup neither of us ever thought we'd need. Funny how foresight feels like a superpower when the world tilts. Then, I called our internet provider. Password changed. Cameras activated. She wouldn't be slipping in the back door for souvenirs. And finally, I booked a spa weekend. For Claire. At Andrew's name brand retreat. It was easy enough. Use her card. Fake her number. They thought it was a gift from a secret admirer. I made sure it was during a weekend Andrew was supposed to be out of town for a men's clarity workshop in Arizona. But of course, he wasn't going to Arizona. Because I called the venue pretending to be him and canceled his attendance. So, Claire shows up expecting a relaxing weekend in her fantasy world, and instead, she's greeted by Andrew, who's not expecting her, not amused, and very confused why a woman is hugging him in front of guests. Jack recorded the whole thing from across the parking lot. Sent me the footage. Her face, when she realized she'd been set up, was priceless. A perfect blend of shock and, "Wait, which one of you did this to me?" Answer: me. The husband you forgot was paying attention. But I wasn't done. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reconstruction. So I made my final move. Claire had a gallery event coming up, one she'd curated for months, pitching herself as a visionary of minimalist art. She'd invited donors, colleagues, old friends, new ones. Even Andrew. Of course. I RSVP'd under my own name. Wore a tailored suit. One she used to beg me to wear more often. I walked in late. Just as she was giving her welcome speech. She faltered when she saw me. Her voice caught on a vowel. Recovered. Smiled through it. I waited until she finished. Then walked up, handed her a small envelope. "What is this?" she asked, tone brittle. I leaned in. Closure. Inside, a printed, framed copy of the postcard. "Your eyes are the best view of this trip." Signed by me, using Andrew's ridiculous font from his Instagram brand kit. And below that, a gift card to a luxury optometrist. Because if my eyes were the best view, she clearly needed her vision checked. When I walked out of that gallery, I didn't feel righteous. Didn't feel smug. I just felt done. Like I'd finally stepped out of the fog she'd been building around me for months. And as the door shut behind me, I realized something. She hadn't just lost a husband. She'd lost the one person who could have forgiven her. After the gallery, she tried to reach me. 8 calls. 2 emails. A voice message I didn't bother opening. I wasn't interested in her explanations anymore. I didn't need to know why. I already knew the real answer. Because she could. Because she thought I wouldn't find out. Because in her mind, I was still the dependable background character in her glamorous little rebrand. But here's the thing about quiet men. We're not asleep. We're recording. And now that I was fully awake, I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to curse. I wasn't going to break a single dish. I was going to erase her. Cleanly. Surgically. Claire didn't come home for 3 more days. I assumed she thought I'd cool off. Maybe text her something dramatic like, "Come back. Let's talk." She'd always misunderstood me. She thought I was quiet because I was passive. She never realized I was quiet because I was calculating. I spent those 3 days preparing. First, legal. I'd already had my lawyer file for divorce. No fault, uncontested, expedited. Every T crossed. Every I dotted. Second, financial. I transferred the final payments out of our remaining joint portfolio, closed the account, and mailed her half in a crisp check. Labeled, debt paid. She liked that phrase, "We're a team." We split everything. Well, now she had her split. Neatly divided. Professionally packaged. Third, personal. She had always loved our photos. We had dozens on the walls, vacations, birthdays, and side jokes frozen in time. They weren't memories anymore. They were props in a story that had ended 3 chapters ago. So I took every photo that had both of us in it and replaced myself. Literally. I photoshopped myself out. Sometimes I blurred my face. Sometimes I replaced it with a black box. Sometimes I left a blank white silhouette, just a hollow where a husband used to be. Then I hung every altered frame back on the walls, right where they used to be. When she walked back into the house, she'd see it. She had already erased me. Now I was returning the favor. On day 4, she finally came home. I was in the kitchen, brewing coffee. Calm, clean-shaven, dressed like I was hosting a business meeting. She walked in like a ghost wearing Chanel. Hair too perfect. Smile too forced. "Logan," she said. I nodded. "Claire." Her eyes drifted around the room, clocking the framed postcard on the counter, the suit I'd laid out for dry cleaning, the absence of her keys from the hook. And then she noticed the photos, one by one. At first, she didn't say anything, just slowly walked toward the living room wall, scanning them. Then, "What is this?" I sipped my coffee. "Reality. Edited for clarity." Her face tensed. "Are you trying to scare me? Humiliate me?" "No," I said. "You did that yourself." She turned, voice rising. "This is petty, Logan. And cheating on your husband with a hiking app in human form was what? Noble." Her lip curled, but I could see it panic. She thought I was going to beg. She thought this would all end in some explosive argument where she'd cry and I'd break something, and then she could go tell her friends. He just couldn't handle it maturely. Instead, I walked to the table, picked up an envelope. Inside, divorce papers. Already signed. Already filed. She opened it slowly, hands trembling just enough to make me proud. "You're really doing this?" I looked at her, not the woman I married, but the stranger who wore her face. "I already did." She stared at me for a long time. Then she laughed. Dry. Bitter. Hollow. "You'll regret this." I didn't blink. "I regret trusting you. Everything after that's just cleanup." She stepped forward, softer now. That manipulative switch she thought still worked. "You're throwing away 10 years. You threw them away in a rental cabin with someone who uses hashtags in real conversation." Her jaw clenched. She reached for something to say, but the words didn't come. So I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and said, "You can stay tonight. After that, I expect you to be gone. I've booked you a room for the weekend." "You what?" "I used your credit card. Figured you'd want the points." That night, I slept like a man who had just burned down the last bridge to hell and watched the smoke fade in the distance. She stayed silent. No tantrums. No tears. Maybe she was waiting for the next phase of the plan. She didn't know there wasn't one. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't about ruining someone. It's about refusing to carry them any farther. Morning came quietly. Claire was still in the house, but you wouldn't have known it by the silence. She didn't touch the coffee machine. Didn't turn on her favorite podcast. Didn't even click her heels down the hallway like she usually did when she wanted attention without asking for it. She was a ghost now. And the house? Mine again. At exactly 9 a.m., I placed a key on the kitchen counter. Just one. A copy of her new room key at the hotel I'd booked. A detail I didn't do for kindness. I did it for symmetry. She left our trip with a stranger's key in her bag. Now I left her the same parting gift. By noon, she was gone. No note. No apology. Just the sound of a door closing behind her, and for the first time in weeks, the air didn't feel polluted with lies. That evening, I lit a fire in the backyard. Not a symbolic one. A literal one. I burned every card she ever wrote me. Every receipt from every trip. Every Valentine's Day note. Every "just thinking of you" sticky. Every letter that once said forever. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it for order. You don't leave infection in a wound and hope it heals. You cut it out. And then you cauterize. The next few days moved fast. Jack, always 5 steps ahead, had been quietly building the digital version of my revenge. A curated release of Claire and Andrew's texts, photos, and travel receipts, all anonymously sent to the board of the local arts nonprofit where she held a seat. Turns out, they take ethical representation pretty seriously. Her resignation was voluntary, according to the statement they put out, which is corporate speak for, "Get out before we throw you out." And Andrew? He lost a sponsor. Some health brand that didn't want their logo attached to a man using his client retreats as hookup dens. The story didn't hit the papers, but it hit enough inboxes to poison his Instagram's comment section. Now, when he posts pictures of mountains, people ask him if he got there by climbing or crawling into someone else's marriage. Claire reached out again. A message this time. "I know you're angry, but ruining our reputations? You're better than that." I didn't reply. Because I wasn't angry. I was finished. The real final move, though, wasn't loud. It came a week later, in the form of a dinner invitation. From her parents. Apparently, they'd heard rumors. Apparently, they wanted to know my side of the story. So I went. Polite. Shaved. Pressed shirt. Navy blazer. The Logan she used to bring home to show off. The "look what I landed" version. They sat me down, poured me a glass of red, and said, gently, We heard some things. I nodded. They're true. Her father frowned. But surely, this is just a mistake. A misunderstanding. I set my phone on the table. Hit play. The voice came out clear and soft. Claire's voice. You still think we're just in a rough patch? Per baby. Silence. Her mother's hand rose to her mouth. Her father sat back, eyes wide, not with shock, but recognition. I didn't want you to hear it from me, I said. But you raised a daughter who's great at pretending. They asked what I planned to do. I'm already doing it, I said. I'm walking away without looking back. Her father finally nodded, slowly, like someone reading the end of a novel and realizing it never had a happy ending to begin with. If you need anything, he started. I don't, I said, standing. But thank you. That night, I changed my phone number. Deleted our shared cloud account. Sold the last gift she ever gave me, an espresso machine. Never used. Got $500 for it. Bought a punching bag. Hung it in the garage. Because closure sometimes sounds like silence, and sometimes it sounds like leather smacking canvas in a cold room while you remind yourself you still have hands. And power. And purpose. And Claire? She tried a few more times. A long email with metaphors about getting lost, about not knowing how far she drifted until she couldn't see the shore. It ended with, I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I didn't reply. She already said everything I ever needed to hear. She said it the moment she packed that shirt in her bag. And she signed it when she smiled at my silence and thought it meant surrender. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But that's wrong. Revenge, when done right, isn't a dish at all. It's fasting. It's looking at the hunger for vengeance and saying, no thanks, I've eaten. Because now I'm not full of rage. I'm just full of clarity, of space, of peace. The silence didn't just hurt her. It hollowed her. Claire had always relied on the drama. She thrived in tension, one foot in apology, one foot in manipulation. When I refused to fight, when I didn't chase, she lost her script. Mutual friends started asking questions. Some of them already knew. I didn't tell them. The truth leaked out on its own. Andrew ghosted her after the nonprofit fallout. Her gallery invites dried up. Invitations that once flowed like wine stopped arriving altogether. She was radioactive now, and no one wanted to sip from the same glass. She posted a few vague things online, quotes about healing and growth. Comments were turned off. Then, eventually, the profile went dark. I knew she was unraveling when I got a message from her sister, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She's not okay. I think she thought you'd come back. I didn't reply. Because by then, I had already moved out of the house. A new apartment, smaller, but cleaner. Lighter. No echoes in the walls. Just windows, space, and air I didn't have to share with secrets. Claire sent one final letter. Handwritten. Sloppy. Smelled like the perfume she used to wear when she wanted something. You said I erased you. Maybe I did. But I thought you'd fight for me. For us. I didn't know how far I'd gone until I looked around and didn't recognize the life I was left with. I don't love him. I never did. I just didn't want to feel invisible. You were always steady. But maybe I mistook your strength for silence. You're quiet for weakness. You were never weak. I see that now. She signed it, love, always. I folded it, slid it into the shredder, and watched the ribbon of her words curl into something meaningless. Because some letters aren't meant to be answered. Some apologies arrived too late. 6 months passed. I ran into Andrew by accident at a gym downtown. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just shrunk. Like a man who'd spent too much time watching doors that never opened again. He recognized me. Tried to play cool. Hey man, he said, nodding. No hard feelings, right? I smiled, slow and dry. None at all, I said. I actually owe you. He blinked. For what? For doing the one thing I couldn't, I said. You showed me who she really was. He opened his mouth to say something else. But I was already walking past. I didn't need to hear his side of the story. I lived my side. That was enough. It's been a year now. I don't think about Claire much anymore. Not in the bitter way. Just not at all. She's a chapter that closed with the kind of punctuation you don't forget. A period that felt like an exclamation mark. I've started seeing someone new. She doesn't ask about the past. She doesn't flinch when I go quiet. She just lets the silence be what it is, a place, not a threat. We cook on Sundays. We laugh over bad movies. She once told me my eyes look like home. And this time, I believe it. Not because I need to, but because I finally remember what real feels like. Claire once said I wasn't man enough for her. She was right. I wasn't the man she deserved. I was better. And now? Now I don't need revenge. I don't need proof. I've got peace. And sometimes, that's the cruelest, kindest ending of all.